Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which is science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Sattology builds our identity and gives credit to our history. Mythology destroys the histories of the natives in the eyes of Western academics. But it doesn't happen for all of them. For people who live the history, it's not possible. Like recently, in Guatemala, in the temple of Nakum. This temple was is been there, very grandest temple, bigger than any church in South America. But still, it is being told that the Europeans went to civilize them, and this temple is left, and the culture is not being practiced. Is the Mayan temple? More than 1,000 tons of gold was stolen from this temple. So just understand that how the mythology destroys it completely. People have been turned to the religion of the Europeans, and they speak the European language, and you can see the countries is very poor because they're dependent on Europeans for everything they come from. The same thing was tried on India. Just believe me. The same thing was tried in India. The attempt was to put the Hindus' culture and faith in a museum so that people do not practice it. But something astonishing happened. Despite more than 100,000 temples being broken in India so that the Hindus vanish, the Sanatana Dharma survived. No other, it has never happened anywhere in the world except India. I have a very, very special guest who writes very strong historical articles and books. Without delay, let us welcome Shri Prashant Pole.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. So, isn't this a fact? It's a great surprise for the whole world that however hard they tried, but the Sanatana Dharma has survived, and the followers have survived also. So the history of Islamic invasions, when we see, is built from destroying more than 5,000 temples in Kabul and the destruction of temples in Pakistan, which will be almost like 50 to 60,000 just in Pakistan itself, and in India, which will be around 40 to 50,000 temples. So we are looking at more than 125,000 plus temple destruction. And one of the most notable in Pakistan is the Multan, and most notable in Afghanistan is Herat and Kabul. So what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, you are right, and I agree with you that this is probably the only unique religion in the world, in that sense, that which is still survived. There are a lot of attacks on the religion. Their places of worship were destroyed. They were forcibly they were supposed to get converted into their respective religions, Abrahamic religions. But in spite of this, still the Sanatan Dharma, Hindu Dharma, is still there, and that, that's as you rightly said, the only place in the world is India. Hindus are mainly tolerant by nature itself. For example, when this Muslims came to India long back as a traders, the local kings, they not only allowed them to build their own place of worship, rather they encouraged them in place of Kerala. Like for example, the southern tip of India, wherein the Islamic traders came, they built their mosque. It was encouraged by the king and local people that yes, you have your own religion and you can build your own place of worship. That's perfectly all right for the Hindus. Similarly, when the Portuguese came, Portuguese also built a church, and yes, they were welcome. Not only allowed, but rather they were encouraged to build their place of worship. Same was the case with the Jews. They built their synagogue in the west coast of India, southern tip of India. I mean to say that Hindus are tolerant by nature, and they don't have any issue. They don't have any problem if the other person has different faith and he is going to his own place of worship. That's perfectly all right. But problem is different. Problem is it's not only that others would just like to have the worship. The others, like the invaders, the Islamic invaders, they destroyed the place of worship of Hindus, the Hindu temples, and built the mosque on that very place. And still, there was resistance because they came as invaders. They ruled also part of India for a longer period of time. And, and during this period, they literally destroyed more than, as you rightly said, more than 120 or 130,000 temples in the entire India. I mean, the earlier ancient India, which was quite large. So it was their own practice, their own way of life, their own way of thinking that only their religion has to be there. No other religion, no other practice of religion, no other place of worship could exist there. And that psychology, that kind of their way of life, way of thinking, that created a problem in India. And in spite of this, we still survive. Hindus are still survive. But now, when the actual proofs are coming in front of the people, then it is realized that how they have built their own place of worship by destroying the Hindu temples. And that's really sad part of it.
The worst is like they're behaving exactly like the European colonizers. European colonizers did the same thing to South America. They destroyed, it is said, I mentioned in my book also, Gold, Glory, and God, 60,000 tons of gold was shipped from Aztecs to, they were the richest, and to Europe, Spain. And from Incas, almost 30,000 tons of gold was shipped from Incas to Europe. Now, the same thing happened with the Islamic culture also, because when the invaders come to India, 70,000 women were shipped from India to Syria and other places as a bounty of the riches. And this is just the women. And I'm not even talking about the wealth, because the Kashi Vishwanath Mandir, the temple was covered with gold by Maharaj Ranjit Singh, and still it was taken out. All those things were taken out, and before that, how much more rich would have been there? So, in your opinion, was just the looting was enough, or it was an ulterior motive to destroy the culture itself, being temples being the center of the culture?
Looting was not the only purpose of their, destroying the temples and all. If that would have been there, probably there are a lot of other places wherein a lot of wealth was there. But what they wanted was, they knew that where the strength of these Hindus lies. And the strength is in the place of worship, their temples, their universities, their place of knowledge. And wherever they found that their place of knowledge, like Nalanda, this Khilji has destroyed in 1193. Similarly, other places also, other universities also, other temples also, they have destroyed. In fact, when Aurangzeb wrote a farman to his commander-in-chief of various regions, I will read that in a later part. Therein he has mentioned that not only you have to destroy the temples of Hindus, rather the schools, the place of education wherein they get educated, even that need to be destroyed. The Gurukul, where various Gurukuls used to be there, that was also supposed to be destroyed. So basically, their intention was not only to destroy the or to do the looting. That anyway they did a lot of loot. Somnath temple. Let's take an example of the Somnath temple. Somnath was such a wealthy temple. Kashi Vishwanath, such a wealthy temple. Let me quote one example of one temple which is not generally in discussion. That's the Bija Mandal temple. This Bija Mandal temple is in Vidisha. Vidisha is close to place of Indore. That is the western part of Madhya Pradesh, the central province of India. Therein, in that temple, was that time one of the grandest and the largest temple in the entire ancient India, the large ancient India. You can call it. It was sort of a Angkor Wat, not exactly Angkor Wat, but in as the grandness is concerned, it was sort of an Angkor Wat temple. If it would have been remained even now, this temple had the deities like Suryadeva, Mahadev, Parvati, Krishna, etc. Huge temple, grand temple. This this temple was a kilometer wide and 150 yards was the height of this temple. This was destroyed by how many people? Many. Whosoever king used to come, he used to destroy that temple. Earlier, initially, this temple was built by Parmar Raja Naravarman. The first it was destroyed by Mahmud Ghazni, the great Mahmud Ghazni, great in inverted commas, who had looted this Somnath and all. He had destroyed this. Then again, these Parmar king and Rajput kings, they have built the temple. Then Iltutmish had destroyed. Malik Kafur had destroyed. Then Mahmud Khilji had destroyed. Then Bahadur Shah Kokaltash from Gujarat, he had destroyed. And last was the Aurangzeb. Every time, whenever any Islamic ruler used to destroy the temple, the Hindu kings, Hindu people, Hindu disciples, they used to build the temple with its earlier kind of grandness. And every time it was destroyed. And this is not example of this only temple. Every temple, Somnath temple was destroyed by many times. Again, it was rebuilt. Again, it was destroyed. Again, it was rebuilt. So the Hindus who basically belong to this soil, belong to this country, their own place of worship was destroyed by these Islamic invaders. And every time it used to happen, and the Hindus used to build it again and again. It used to get continued. I could see a very few temples during this period which are really intact in nature. Specifically, the temples in northern region. Again, when I say northern region, I'm not considering the existing India's northern region. It was northern region and northwest region of the ancient India, which was quite large and which has, this Afghanistan, Pakistan was also part and parcel of India that time. So even that central part, even southern part, most of the temples are really destroyed, defaced. Like, for example, in my place in Jabalpur, which is exactly central of India, therein a temple called Chausat Yogini Temple, 64 deities in a Devi Swarupa. These deities are there, and not a single deity is intact in its original form. Otherwise, the sculpture is marvelous, excellent. But every deity was kind of defaced by breaking the hand or nose or the entire head or many such kind of things. Not a single sculpture, not a single deity is intact in the Chausat Yogini Mandir. Similarly, you will find that most of the temples are like that. When Aurangzeb was in Maharashtra, we all are aware that Aurangzeb spent his last 26 to 27 years in Maharashtra. He entered in Maharashtra just to vanish this Maratha Empire, which was basically set by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So he thought that Shivaji has now died. In 1680, Shivaji died. So he thought now, yes, it is a cakewalk for me because the Chhatrapati Sambhaji can do what? He couldn't do anything. So 1681, he entered into Maharashtra. He fought with, Sambhaji Raje fought with him. Sambhaji Raje died or killed by Aurangzeb in 1689. He thought, now the things are easy for me. Now it's a cakewalk at least, because Sambhaji has gone. But Rajaram was there. He fought from Jinji, from Tamil Nadu, and then so on. 1707, Aurangzeb died in Maharashtra itself. In entire this period of 27 years, he couldn't go back to his capital or to his northern places. He was there in Maharashtra itself. So when he was in Maharashtra, he and his forces, I mean, he gave the instruction to his forces to destroy various temples. So they destroyed one of the Jyotirlinga in Maharashtra, which is a place called Nasik. That was Trimbakeshwar. So somehow his forces destroyed the Trimbakeshwar temple. They tried to destroy it, but couldn't do much in Ellora, Pandharpur, Jejuri, Yavat. So many such places, so many such temples were there. History of Aurangzeb, that Jadunath Sarkar, the great historian Jadunath Sarkar, has described this in detail in his History of Aurangzeb, in his book History of Aurangzeb. That one has to really read that. That really gives that how crooked this Aurangzeb was and how he didn't really uh, 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 accept the coexistence of Hindus. He didn't want that Hindus have to be there. And same case was with the Kashi Vishwanath temple, which is in discussions nowadays.
One of the things which people are really hurt is, and global hurt is there because Shivji is a global icon. It's not just from India. Many people in US, which are American Hindus, they practice Sanatana Dharma at their home. I hate to say Hinduism, and I want my readers not to say Hinduism ever. Whenever they write the ism in the Western academic parlance, it actually means a very negative connotation like imaginary. Like they never use Christianism, they don't use Islamism, but they use Judaism and Hinduism. So at least the followers of Hindus, Sanatan Dharma or Vedas should not use Hinduism word at all. You can use Hindutva or Hinduness, anyone which you like. So coming to this, so these atrocities are never told in the Western Hemisphere. First of all, they have no interest in that. See what happened to natives of India. Natives of India are practitioners of Sanatana Dharma. So they're never told. And purposely the statements of Aurangzeb are hidden in the name of secularism. But secularism again is a mental concoction. Secularism was invented to keep church out of power. It's an English word to keep church out of power. But they purposely do not mention the atrocities faced by the natives because it exposes them and attacks their moral authority. Because they've told their children that we have been the most moral people, we build wealth to people, to the natives. But if you look at the condition of Native Americans, and that's why all these movements, BLM and all these movements are happening, because the Native Americans do not like their land being taken away and they being pushed in the barren lands where they cannot grow even food over there. That's called reservations. And reservations were created so that the cities, European settlers can be protected from attack by the natives. So it's like I'm going to your house, taking over your house, and keeping you in the backyard of the house so that you don't come to my house. But it's a universal law. A stolen thing always remains stolen. It's considered stolen. It's not like the conqueror occupier. And usually they justify, because we conquered, we defeated, now we are the rulers. But that is again, it's a jungle raj. It's an anarchist attitude where if I conquer and then it becomes yours. So not a single land, whether it is USA, Australia, and New Zealand, Canada, all these are occupied lands even till date. So now if you look at from the academic point of view, so before you show like what Aurangzeb said, why do you think they do this action? Because I feel that's an insecurity. Because if the natives know, then they're going to demand their nation back.
Correct. Right. Recently, there are few articles or few books are in circulation, or people are talking a lot about it in light with this Kashi Vishwanath and what's happening, that survey and all. One is a simple, small kind of a essay or kind of an article written by Maximilian Murdoch. He, from the guidance of Mr. Kennedy, he writes, there is a review called Rice Historical Review. Therein he wrote an article titled "How to Build a Villain: Aurangzeb, Temple Destruction, and His Modern Reputation." He tries to say that no, Aurangzeb was not like that, like what people are saying. Aurangzeb was a generous person, and he rather built the temples rather than destroyed the temples. Now he is basically a student, this Maximilian Murdoch. He didn't give any concrete proof that how he can say that yes, this Aurangzeb was a great protector of the temples and all. He didn't give any such proofs. Another one is this Audrey uh, Audrey Truxke. This Audrey Truxke, she wrote an sort of biography of Aurangzeb, and this book is also in circulation, wherein she tries to say that Aurangzeb was not a bad person. He protected Hindu, he protected the Hindu temples, he protected the Hindu culture and all. And this Audrey Truxke's book is in circulation. And third one is the Eaton. Eaton is also from US, and he wrote on a book called Temple Destruction. He also tries to say that no, Aurangzeb at all destroyed, only there are 15 temples he had destroyed. And surprisingly, none of them really give a solid proof, or none of them had really give a concrete evidence which shows that yes, they have really protected or destroyed only so and so temples and all. This is unfortunate part of it. Now, why they are doing it? Basically, none of them would like to really see that this India is getting a more stronger country. If the earlier, what happened, what Britishers tried to do, Britishers tried to generate some theories for their own benefit, like this Aryan invasion and all, so that yes, everyone has come from the outside, we have also come from the outside, so what's the great what's the mistake about it, we also ruling, others also ruling, like that. So like Aryan theory and this casteism theory and this like that. So some theories were created by Britishers just to justify their colony in India and other places rather. So that was their own intention. But this now the pro-Islamist kind of a strategy which this leftist group is basically taking, this is only because they do not want to see that India is a great country. India is getting more stronger day by day, and that's why they wanted to portray that yes, whatever you are saying, whatever was your past, that past was not really that kind of glorious. You were beaten by these Islamist invaders many times. You didn't somehow could risk your own temples, your own place of worship and all, something like that. That kind of uh, theory they really want to create. Unfortunately, none of them have really quote, none of them have really gone to the Aurangzeb Farman. Aurangzeb has issued a lot of orders, we call it orders, Farmans. Most of the Farmans are not, most, all of the Farmans are in Farsi. So there is a great historian in India. His name was his name is Professor Jaduna Sarkar. Jaduna Sarkar was the master in Farsi and Urdu. So he literally read, he gone through all those documents, manuscripts and all, so many documents. And based on that, he wrote so many books, and he is acceptable in the circle of academicians also as a great historian. And he was a real great historian. He gave lot of examples, like how, let's take an example of Kashi Vishwanath temple, wherein he says that, like I just quoted that in Maharashtra, how Aurangzeb has destroyed various temples. Now, Kashi Vishwanath temple also was destroyed by Aurangzeb. He attempted first in 1664. Now, 1664 was a period when he just got the kind of a, he was trying to get, he just got a control a few years back. Prior to that, he got control over the entire Mughal Empire. So 1664 he tried. He sent his forces to Kashi Vishwanath, but there were the Naga sadhus, and Naga sadhus defended this, and they literally defeated the Aurangzeb force, this Aurangzeb army. And somehow in 1664, this Kashi Vishwanath temple was survived. Uh, Professor James G. Lostefelds, he has written a book, interesting book. One can go through it. That is the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Hinduism, Volume 1. Therein he has nicely described how that attack was there and how the Naga sadhus have defended it. Professor Jaduna Sarkar, which I just mentioned, a great historian, he also wrote a small book called History of Dashnami Naga Sadhus. And in this history of Dashnami Naga Sadhus, he has mentioned all those facts that how this temple was survived or could get defended. But then Aurangzeb again attacked this Kashi because he knew that the entire India, wherever we go, everyone has a great feeling about Kashi. Like Muslims have this, great respect for the Makkah Medina. Similarly, the Hindus have rather great respect for the Kashi Vishwanath. And that's why he wanted that Hindus shouldn't worship in this temple. So Aurangzeb attacked again Kashi in 1669, just 4-5 years after the first attack. 40,000 Naga sadhus sacrificed their lives. They fought. They fought till their last thing of the blood, and they fought. They somehow tried to defend, but they couldn't defend it. They got defeated. Aurangzeb somehow won. He destroyed, and then he built a mosque. Now, why he built a mosque? Because he knew that, and one of his farman also reveals why he built a mosque there. Because if he didn't build a mosque, this Hindus again rebuild the temple, maybe today or tomorrow. That's what the earlier tradition, that every time the Muslim invader used to destroy the Hindu temple, and Hindus again try to rebuild that. That keep on going in various places in the country. So he said that that shouldn't happen, and for that he built a mosque. And because the place was called Gyanavapi, he gave the name Gyanvapi. Now, why Gyanavapi name he gave? Gyanvapi is a Sanskrit word. Why he's using why that name was given as a Gyanavapi Masjid or Gyanavapi Mosque to this? Because it was known as a Gyanavapi. It was a Gyanavapi temple. In there is a book, a religious book in Marathi language. Marathi is one of the language in India. That book name is Guru Charitra. In this Guru Charitra book, there is a mention that go to Kashi and pray and worship the Gyanavapi and all. Now, this book was written in early 15th century. So, in early 15th century, till that time, this Gyanavapi temple, this Kashi Vishwanath temple was there. And the major evidence is that Nandi is basically the kind of carrier of Bhagwan Shankar. So Nandi is there. They somehow left Nandi. They thought that Nandi probably may not be that important. And Nandi always, sitting in, and facing the Bhagwan Shankar. So Nandi is there. Naturally, wherever Nandi is there, in front of the Nandi, there has to be Bhagwan Shankar in form of Shivlinga or in form of Murti. Maybe in some form. But Bhagwan Shankar has to be there. So that Nandi is there, and now when the survey is there, and then they found that there is a well and there is a Shivlinga, and which is exactly in the straight line of the Nandi, is a bull. So point is, in 1669 when he destroyed, and Aurangzeb built a Gyanavapi mosque there. But then again, as I said, that Hindus wanted to rebuild their temple. Rani Ahilyabai Holkar, she tried to build in 1742, but somehow couldn't do it because that Nawab of Lucknow, he intervened and he said, no, you shouldn't do, and all such things. Then Maharaja of Jaipur, he wanted to, purchase the entire land. and after purchasing the land, including the mosque and temple, everything, he wanted to finish this mosque and build the original temple there. But somehow in 1750 that also couldn't happen. At last, 30 years after that, in 1780, Queen Ahilyabai Holkar again built that, and this is today's temple which we see, which is not exactly on the same location, same place wherein the earlier temple was there, and that was destroyed by this Aurangzeb. So it was just built next to it. Yaduna Sarkar writes about Aurangzeb. So there is another book on Aurangzeb, Anecdotes of Aurangzeb and Historical Essays. That's basically another book which he has written. Therein, I just quote few of his wordings. It's quite interesting. Meanwhile, Aurangzeb had begun to give free play to his religious bigotry. In April 1669, he ordered his provincial governors to destroy. He ordered his provincial governors, and there is a farman which he has quoted, and there is a farman which one could see also in Farsi. That farman says, wherein he writes, Aurangzeb, his provincial governors to destroy the temples and schools. I just mentioned earlier that schools, he also didn't want that the schools also have to be there of the Hindus, and utterly put down the teachings and religious practices of the Hindus. That's what he wrote. And then he further writes that the grandest shrine of Mathura, then Keshav Rai's temple in Mathura, there was a Krishna temple, Keshav Rai's temple, was razed to the ground in January 1670 and a mosque built on its site. During this time of 1679 to 1680, during that time, there was a Rajput war. Rajput have fought with this Mughals, and there was a war that 1 or 2 years. A lot of fighting was going on among the Rajputs and Mughals. During this period, there was a destruction of 175 temples in Mewar alone, in Mewad or Mewar. Only in that region, 175 temples were destroyed. That's the proof is there, written proof is there, documented proof is there, which includes the famous Someshwar temple and 3 big temples in Udaipur. There is another historian called Muni Lal. He had also written a lot about Aurangzeb. His book itself is Aurangzeb. Now he writes a great characteristics of Aurangzeb. I mean, what Aurangzeb actually did. And again, when he writes, he give all the documents, all supporting documents, all evidences along with that, all the farmans and all. So Munilal writes in his book, which I quote, he means Aurangzeb, raised many magnificent Hindu temples to the ground, built mosques in their place, desecrated images of Hindu gods and goddesses, banned all forms of music, prohibited the use of Hindu modes of salutation like namaskar and all, that was prohibited, declared astrology and allied sciences to be atheistic in character, discontinued the Tilak ceremonial when Hindu kings came to court to pay the tributes and all. So all such cultural identification, all such day-to-day activities of Hindus, that was really banned, totally banned, totally stopped by Aurangzeb. And not only that, he increased or he revived the jizya tax. There was a tax which is called a jizya tax. And they say that as per their holy book, those who are not Muslims, they were supposed to pay the tax to the Islamic rulers. And that's why that tax called jizya tax in India. Aurangzeb has increased that tax. I quote another author, David Allen. He had written a book called Studies in Islamic History and Civilization. He says, he writes how Aurangzeb forcibly converted Hindus to Islam and destroyed the Hindu temples. He is, in detail, he described all this process. Then Abraham Irali writes a book called Emperor of the Peacock Throne. That's quite famous book. Emperor of the Peacock Throne, on basically on Mughals, that book is written. On that, some serial also was made and all. All temples around Ujjain were destroyed, and 300 temples being destroyed in Rajasthan during that specific period. I can quote number of such incidences. I can give lot of, anyone can give lot of evidences, lot of testimonial, lot of proof, everything, that how this Aurangzeb is not only the Aurangzeb. Since when the Islamist or Islamic invaders came to India, their aim was very clear. They wanted to destroy the Hindu place of worship. They do not want the coexistence of Hindus because they said that their religion doesn't permit that. But they were, because they were less in number, Hindus belong to this country, so they didn't have much to do. So they attacked on their own pride, the place of pride, and that was the place of worship. And that is basically the temples, the universities, the gurukuls, their schools and all. And that's basically the entire history. Now, Ram Janmabhoomi temple, when it was there in Ayodhya, when digging was there and they did everything, they found it was a temple. So on the temple, wherein we believe, all the Hindu believes in the world, that Ram was born in that place, deliberately it was, a mosque was built on that. Similarly, wherever we say that we all have a lot of faith on this Kashi Vishwanath, they destroyed the temple, and there itself they have built a mosque. And that too also, if whatever the news is coming, and if that news is true, it is very unfortunate part of it, wherein they say that the Shivlinga, where a Shivling is there, that place is a place for the Waju. Waju is, before go to prayer, Muslims generally, wash their feet and hands. So they were washing their hands and feet on Bhagwan Shankar. And if that is so, that basically, tells us the characteristics of this religion. This is really horrible. This is a very sudden part of it.
It is just like saying that that people in the Islamism faith, if somebody else disrespects or does a similar thing to Quran, how will they feel? And people who are following Christianism, somebody does to their Bible and their church and the image of Jesus, then how will they feel? It's worse than that. But here 1.4, people say 1.2 billion, but I'm saying there are a lot of closet Hindus also, and which may not have the Hindu name, but they practice Sanatana Dharma. So for them, 1.4 to 1.5 billion people are hurt by this, because it is a very serious thing for people's faith. And unlike the Abrahamism philosophies, most of the yoga philosophies are based on experiential science, actually. So the people can experience it within themselves, and also there are recorded histories of actually getting the visions, spiritual visions of such personalities. So last question on this area. So the solutions can be many, but and I'm not here to give solutions to anyone. People have to decide their own solution. So one of the approaches must be that throughout the history, invaders have never apologized. This is the history. UK has never apologized to India. Most of the Islamic countries have not apologized for what their ancestors did, and including lands that they've taken away, like Pakistan was a flourishing Hindu territory. And it is also a fact, it was the Indian Muslims who wanted Pakistan, but the Pakistani Muslims wanted to stay with India. the original Pakistani Muslims.
Yes, yes.
So this is a historical fact. So, and also you can see the condition of all the conquered territories except India. All of them have collapsed. If it was not for India, Sri Lanka won't be saved. If it was not for India, Bangladesh won't be prosperous. Sorry to say, many of the Bangladeshi people, you need to know that if it is not India, you won't be prosperous. And if it was till the time India allowed the demonetization did not happen, Pakistan was a prosperous country because they were making money off of India. So after demonetization, now they are poor because exactly the reason they're dependent on the Indian economy to survive. So at Afghanistan, we already know the situation. Iran, we already know the situation. These are all, Iran was a Zoroastrian country, not a Islamic country. Iraq was a Zoroastrian country, not an Islamic country. Now they have not survived. None of them have survived. So the history shows that if the native cultures are preserved, then the prosperity is reigned for the local people. So India's culture is built on Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita, and Veda. And that is the strength of the Indian culture. So any kind of foreign thought, whether it's Arabic or Vatican-based thought or Abrahamic thought, any Abrahamic thought, cannot be put into the land of these people because these people have the original faith. So the more it is respected, the better for the world. What do you have to say on that?
Absolutely correct. Because as you already said that they were not apologetic so far, but I feel that if there are, some Muslims who are really generous, who are nice, who are educated, who understand the history, who understand the scenario, they should come out and they should say, okay, whatever our ancestors might have done, and their ancestors probably might be the invaders. It might be a possibility that most of them were really converted, Hindus. I mean, the Hindus were converted into Muslims. So, but they have to come out and say that, okay, we respect the local soil, we respect the local country, we respect the local culture. Like we say that Ganges, Ganga river is our mother. We gave that, kind of a respect to a river. And that kind of feeling, if it has to be there, if they really respect the local traditions, the local culture, the local religion, I think yes, uh, it's a way of prosperity for all of us, and that one has to really understand while going through it. And that's why, as I said, that probably these kind of new revelations will be there. A lot of things will get revealed in the future also, and the world will really understand that uh, the actual history was totally different than which was taught by all these people earlier. So that is so one shouldn't play around with the history. One should go to the actual history, actual incidences, actual events which took place. Based on that, one should come out with the conclusion. And I think we all are heading towards the real history. And based on that, we should respect. And that is as you rightly said, that is the only reason why we are survived and why our country has become sort of stronger debate.
It is a history of India. It is a history of this land, I would say, because the land is very big. If I look at Bharat, then starts from Kyrgyzstan and Syria, and on the east it is almost till Malaysia, Indonesia. That is Bharat. So the history of this land is whenever the local cultures are promoted, it becomes a powerhouse. Now I give an example of Philippines also. Philippines was a Hindu country until 1521, and 1521 till date they talk about, like, their biggest word is Mabuhay, means is Mabuhay Jai, like it's like a Jai, and Mahoday is the actual word from where Mabuhay has come. So Philippines was a Hindu country. Most of the Filipino Americans, if they're watching, my friends, you should need to know that. And
In Bangkok airport, sorry for interruption, in Bangkok, Suvarna Bhumi airport, there's a big sculpture which everyone knows and people take a lot of selfies and all. That is the Samudra Manthan. So everyone is aware about it. That's basically from the Hindu history. But very close to that, there is a large, huge map which is displayed there, wherein it has been written that from Purushpur, this Peshawar is that time was called Purushpur. So from Purushpur to Papua New Guinea, they have shown kind of empire, and they have written there the Indian Empire, and therein this Thailand was shown as a Siam, and they have written the Siam. So they are indirectly saying that we are proud to become a part of Indian Empire. The then, so that is yes.
Syrian Arabic name, locally what they call Syria Arabic name is Al-Sham, made in the image of the Sham. That's the actual word. So
Oh,
Krishna was worshipped there because Madri's family is Shalya. Even though
yeah, 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 yeah.
Shalya fought for Duryodhan, but he was a great devotee of Krishna. So the country's land is called Al-Sham till date. So it's not just, and I'm talking about a big area, because that area was Madhya Pradesh, was big, like today's Jordan, Levant, Palestine, Israel. All these were part of Al-Sham, Sanskrit-speaking territories, including Northern Africa, Nile River belt. Most of the alphabets are Brahmi script. Brahmi script is a derivative of Devanagari. I don't
Yeah.
accept the reverse way, because the Brahmi is incomplete. Devanagari is complete because Devanagari has matra. Like the sophistication of language is that whatever I'm speaking, my accent, I should be able to produce that sound on a paper. That makes the language advanced, and that is the beauty of Sanskrit. Each dog has a different bark, and I can write
Mhm.
each one's bark in Devanagari very accurately. That even dog will be
Correct.
surprised, and everybody will read it similar way, because that's the sophistication of Devanagari. And so thank you all for joining. And one thing I must tell you, that the real history builds identity, and real history also heals. If people do not, it's just like the truth heals. If somebody tells you the truth, you don't have to again and again speak lies to defend it, or create new lies to defend the old lies. So truth actually heals, cuts down all the clutter, and that's where the healing begins. If USA, the current European settlers, acknowledge what they did to Native Americans, their ancestors, not they did. I mean, they're very nice people now because of the leftist education. Now they're changing. So leftist education has plus point somewhere or the other. So they're changing. But if they say the truth, what happened to Native Americans, then the healing begins. If that doesn't happen, then you'll have a lot of wrong movements or destructive forces, because karma always strikes back. Karma is one law, which is a universal law and stronger than any constitution, any government laws, anything else. It's going to strike back. Adidevik, Adibhautik, Adhyatmik Klesh, that is called in Sanskrit. So thank you so much for everyone to join. And I hope you learned a lot from this session, that what actually happened in India. And 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 this may be a beginning if we do something like this, and that will be the beginning of healing process. So thank you so much, Prashant Polji, as usual, very interesting, and thank you for your research also. It was short notice, and Prashant Polji said give me a few hours and I'm going to prepare for this talk and then come back. Namaste.